I guess I'm kind of confused on what you need a permit for, what you don't need a permit for. Is there anything that doesn't require a permit that I can upgrade? And then secondarily, as long as I hire, as you said, not the cheapest, but a reasonable professional, can I assume that they're going to handle all of that in the inspections, or is this something I have to do on my own?
Absolutely. So we have this saying that we apply to all of our businesses. It's called trust, but verify. So verify 100% when dealing with contractors, because, yes, you do not want to assume that they actually got the permit or inspections. And I know a lot of owners that we've talked to over the years, thought they hired this licensed professional person to do the work, so of course they got a permit. Not always. And so you definitely want to ask if that is part of the quote, and if they're going to do that. Now, the reason that they don't want to, a lot of times, if they don't put it in the right way, then they don't get to charge you more money, right? Because they should have done it the right way. That's why they're a licensed contractor. The other thing is time. They're going to do the job, then they have to meet the inspector. He may or may give them the blessing, yes, you did it correct, or you did not, all of which could, it's time versus money. I say all that, though, it's not a lot. I mean, it may cost you a little bit more, for sure. And sometimes, that's another thing that kind of gets thrown out there is the contractor may say, hey, it's this amount of money, but if you don't do permits, it's $250 less, or with permits, it's $250, whatever the case may be, the bait and switch, and typically of the less cost, and that's where the consumer a lot of times goes. But I tell you, and it's not everything that takes a permit, but it's not difficult to find out. I mean, the good rule of thumb that has to do with electricity and water, especially if they're being moved to different locations. I don't know of any municipality, hey, let's say this right, any city or government that does not require permits when you move those two things. And it's an easy call. You just give them a call. So if you're in a county, you'd call the county, whether it be Guilford, Forsyth, Alamance, whatever. And then if you live in the city limits of a town, then you would check with them. And look, I mean, it makes sense, because think about it. If something electrical goes wrong, it could burn down the house. Or the second piece is if it's water, you don't want your house flooded, right? And so there are reasons behind it outside of just raising revenue for the city and or the county from tax. It is good. I think it's a good idea that most owners would, just have a third set of, another person, a third party verify the work. That's not a bad thing. If you financed a home, you've already experienced this. The bank, you either worked with a real estate agent or maybe you bought it directly from the owner, and then the bank said, hey, we're going to loan you this amount, but just to make sure that we're not loaning you too much, we're going to do what? Use a third party person. An appraiser is going to go out, and they're going to essentially represent the bank to make sure that they have not overextended themselves. And I think it's a great reason to actually look at doing permits, and and the reason to get those. Yes, is it a little bit more work? Yeah, it is a little bit. It's not tremendous. Most contractors can call them in. If you're a homeowner, it is a little more hoops for you to jump through, because a lot of times you have to go downtown to the city or county, whichever it may be. But I still think it's worth it. And while we're talking about red flags, here's another one. If the contractor kind of has two prices for the job, and one is the invoice price, kind of like this is what I would charge you if you write me a check, and this is a price that if you just give me like $100 bills, and it's a different, about 90% guarantee, those people do not have insurance either. Not 100%, but I would certainly, that's a red flag. So that's something I'd want to know. So I'd want to make sure that I ask if they have some type of general liability and workman's comp insurance. Because if they do not and they get hurt on your property, Mr. and Miss Homeowner, guess who you are? you are the one that you're the employer now. And yes, your homeowner's insurance policy, I think, will 99.9% of the time will cover that. But it's also a claim on your insurance, which you don't want, especially when you didn't plan on being the employer. Like, I don't mind doing a deduction for flooding and making a claim if I'm the one that screwed it up. But if I hired somebody, I want it on their insurance, not on my insurance, right? Or think about if they actually got hurt. So if they fell off a ladder or, any of those type of things. So you could become the workman's comp insurer provider there. So, again, I'm not saying nothing's 100% of the time. It's just my experience over the last 20 years is talking to homeowners, working with thousands of them. Sometimes we get these two different prices, and it's because, they don't have the insurance. And, basically you are insuring them if they got hurt.